Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Deck Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Deck Talk. Today, instead of focusing on one type of deck or focusing on one type of archetype, we're going to take a look at one type of format. And what I mean by format is, yes, we know the official rules for the trading card game with the 40 to 60 cards, the two main phases, and all that stuff. But there are other potential formats out there, and this one was more of a casual, just get your feet wet type of play style. It's called the Speed Duel format. Now, for those of you who are playing Duel Links on the phone, it's effectively that style of play. But for those of you who do not have Duel Links, I'll explain just a little bit about what Speed Duel is. And I know that it was more, like I said, it was more of a beginner format. But it seems like there is the chance that this could potentially be a new format moving forward. Now this is quite a bit of speculation, and I really doubt that the TCG will go this route. But as far as just fun play style, I think this could be a pretty solid fun way to build new decks. You know, especially because when I get into it, you'll understand why it's a much faster pace. It's a much smaller deck, so it'll get you thinking about building different size decks. So if you and your friends, or if you or some of your other competitors at local events like playing this style, I mean, I highly recommend giving it a shot. So, just a little bit about the rules here. Your field is going to be a little bit smaller than what you're used to. I know right now you have your 5 spell and trap card zones, your 5 monster zones, and with the new Link format coming out, you're going to have 1 extra monster zone on either side there. So you're going to have 2 extra monster zones. So with this new format, instead of having 5 monster zones and 5 spell and trap zones, you're going to have 3 monster zones and 3 spell and trap zones. So, however, you will be keeping your extra deck spot as well for each of the players. So it will be 2 extra deck monster zones, 3 monster zones, and 3 spell and trap zones. So the differences here are that you will start with 4,000 life points. Instead of drawing 5 cards in your starting hand like you would in the current TCG format, you'll be drawing 4 cards instead. So, and it makes sense because you're going to have a much smaller deck. You're going to have about 20 cards in the main deck. The Duel Links rule is 20 to 30 cards in your main deck. With this Speed Duel format, you also have 5 cards in the extra deck instead of 15 that you would normally have within the Duel Links. Within the TCG format right now. You will keep your 2 extra monster zones, and other than that, the first player doesn't draw on their first turn. So that's just like having your typical duel. So whoever goes first will keep their 4 cards in their hand. And the hand size limit is 6. But both players can have an active field spell card, and there can only be 3 cards with the same name in both main deck and extra deck. So the one interesting thing here, and I know that this has been a type of format that's been kind of floating around anyway, and it's been re-solidified using the YuGiOh Duel Links app on the phone. But one thing that it seems like has been coming out in Japan, and I briefly saw it on one of the news websites, is at least within the OCG, there's a new playstyle that they're recommending where they allow each player at the beginning of each of these speed duels to effectively choose a skill. So, and what I mean by a skill, if you don't play Duel Links, is each of the legendary duelists that you're able to play as within Duel Links has a skill that you start each game with. So, for example, if you're using Mako Tsunami has a skill where no matter what, you start the game with Umi on the field in your field spell zone. So what that does is already give you some type of advantage, but each of the legendary duelists have their own skill. Say, for example, I've seen some other ones where you get a life point boost. So you still draw all the same amount of cards that you have, but you increase your life points by 1,000 at the beginning of the duel. So instead of starting with 4,000, you start with 5,000. But there's just a whole wide range of skills, and depending on what you choose, it could really come into play and help out your deck more likely than not. There are other ones where you can have an ability to pull a random dark type monster or a random wind type monster or something like that, in which case you would probably want to take all those cards out of the deck when you reach that point, and have your opponent randomly choose one. They're all face down, you shuffle them around, and then you shuffle your deck back, and you get back into the game. I think that's how they would want you to play those types of skills. So what this does is this adds an interesting new dynamic for those people who, you got a lot of cards lying around, you got a lot of maybe outdated cards that you don't necessarily use in the current format, but may run better in a 20-card deck. So This is just a pretty interesting format. I can definitely see this one from a recreational standpoint really taking off, and really getting a higher volume of duels in over the same period of time. Because it's and I'm not saying it's really going to be a faster paced game, because I'm sure if you're running certain Nexes or certain Synchros and stuff in your 5-card extra deck, you can still run some pretty long combos depending on what you're doing. So, but yeah, this really changes the way that people want to build decks if they want to just play around and have fun with this type of format. Now, do I think that down the road Konami will make this an official format and do multiple formats, kind of similar to how other card games do things? I think Magic the Gathering, I don't know too much about that game, but I know that they have multiple formats. So I'm wondering if Konami down the road will do the same thing, especially seeing the success that Duel Links has had in recent months. Seeing as how they've just surpassed 45 million downloads, and a lot of people who are getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Are getting used to the format in Duel Links, which is the speed duel format. So if they want to start getting back into playing the card game and going to local events and playing, they may be more apt to play this speed duel style more so than the regular TCG style or the current format. So I don't know, if they do multiple formats, I feel like it's only a benefit, because at least for me personally, my perspective on it is that it gives me more reasons to build more decks and to really strategize about, okay, what am I going to do for my 40 to 60 card deck versus what am I going to do for my 20 to 30 card deck. So I'm already coming up with ideas. If I find more people in my area who like to play the speed duel format, I'm already purchasing a few cards off of eBay that I'd want to use to make a 20 card deck and for a 4,000 life point duel. So overall, this is just, I don't know, it's just a really cool idea, especially for beginners getting back into it. But anyway, that's just, I just wanted us to just discuss that a little further and see what your thoughts are. If you listeners really like this style of play, or if you think that it's kind of a waste of time, seeing as how many incredibly strong cards you could get on the field in one turn that can wipe your opponent for 4,000 life points, or I don't know. I mean, there's I guess there are a lot of pros and cons out there with this style, but I'd like to know your thoughts. So reach out to me on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word, at YuGiOh Deck Talk, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. And I might bring up this topic again down the road if we got some pretty strong opinions one way or another on this style of play. But I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Anyway, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.